Ben Eller, man.
Hi.
Dude, thank you so much for being here.
Don, it's great to be here.
I really appreciate this because I need your help.
With what?
I need
Some
your
assistance.
help with my upstroke specifically.
Clean up
right
on
now.
aisle 5.
Oh, no, seriously. This is a thing. I know you're an amazing teacher.
Thank you so
for
much.
all things, but definitely all things right hand and all things alternate picking and
Killer.
all of that stuff. And I know you've also gone down the Troy Grady rabbit hole.
Yeah, absolutely. Troy Grady has amazing Cracking the Code series, which you
Yeah.
can watch on the YouTube.
Indeed.
Totally a life changer for me because I'd never been one of those people that picking really came naturally to. Like before we started rolling, we were talking about Joe Satriani,
Yeah.
who's of course a huge legato guy, and that was like my original shred hero. So my first exposure to any sort of fast, shreddy playing was mainly legato lines because I was trying to sound like Satch.
Right.
So the picking stuff never really came naturally to me. There was always certain things I could do well, other things that I just couldn't do at all, and I could never put it together as to why I could do some things and not other things. And whenever the Cracking the Code stuff started coming out, I went down that rabbit hole, and it was like seeing the codes in the Matrix for me, you know?
Yeah.
And of course, I still wrestle with some of these things. I'm still learning about it, but it has been hugely beneficial for me.
Well, and that speaks to the whole point where it's like, it's never, a lot of times when people think about, especially, fast picking technique, alternate picking or whatever, they think it's a solution, and it's not a solution, it's multiple mini solutions that combine to make one whole system that looks fluent and looks like, like it's one thing, but it's really not. It is a combination of multiple. And you're working through the multiples, but man, you're way down the road, dude.
I appreciate that very much. It's always a work in progress, especially early in the morning like it is right now.
I know, man, I know. So I've always been I call it opportunist picking.
Okay,
right?
yeah.
So it's like, it's either legato or hammer-on or sweep picking or economy picking or, a lot of hybrid picking.
Yeah.
For the stuff that I can't do because, especially, in my world when I was like just trying to work. It's like you got to get the work done regardless, and however it works is how it works. And
it's plow through.
Right, and so the alternate picking thing came, like the thought of how to do that came a lot later for me. I started early thinking about it, and then realized, man, that's a giant rabbit hole that I don't have time to go down right now.
Right.
And I'm kind of finding myself like, dang it, I think now's the time.
Yeah.
Here I am. What am I like? Years old and finally coming around to this. But no, and so again, I started watching the Troy Grady stuff.
Yeah.
And
it goes deep.
It does,
it gets
man.
detailed.
It does. You don't have to. And even with just the stuff on YouTube, it goes super deep. And then of course you can get into his whole system. And man, I've just found that from watching your videos that it's like, okay, this is the guy. This is the guy that can give me some info.
I'm glad I fooled
and some
you.
Insight. Where it really started about a long time ago. I was in a band that played Teen Town.
Of course.
You know that, right? And
Yep.
so it's a bass thing.
Yeah.
It's a Jocko lick,
Great Jocko.
but it starts out with that. Right. Right.
Yep.
So you've got octave jumps and string skips in
Oh,
there.
yeah, it's a nightmare for the pick. It's actually easier if you're doing it Jocko style.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So hybrid picking for me works great.
Yeah.
For that. But that's when I realized, oh man, my alternate picking is just kind of
Be cooler if I could do it with
it'd be
this.
great
though,
if I
right?
could do that, like Steve Morse or whatever. It's
Right.
like, yeah.
That'd be great if we could all do stuff like Steve Morse.
Yeah, that's a whole different conversation.
Sure.
But in any case, point being that's when the light really got real bright for me. It was like, oh wow, okay. That's when I became the opportunist workaround picking guy.
Right.
And so what I want to do, man, I think the goal here today, this is very selfish, but I'm hoping it'll help somebody else too. But I think the goal here today is for you to maybe diagnose my picking issue.
Love it. I love that. Yeah.
Yeah.
This is always fun because everybody's issues and stuff are different.
Right.
And I think a lot of us think that we're the only ones that struggle with this stuff, when in reality, we all struggle with this stuff because this is very hard. You're talking about holding this little piece of pointy plastic that you're kind of disconnected from. You're never actually touching the string.
Right.
You're holding something that's touching the string.
Right.
And of course, you have all your, just physiological differences and stuff going in.
Everybody's hand is shaped different, and the thing that feels comfortable to you is different, and the fact that this connects all the way up to here.
Oh yeah.
And so how you hold the guitar, how you hold your arm.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's all changing angles of where the string is sitting on, if you hold your guitar like this versus like this, and all that jazz, yeah. But you know, the first most important thing I'll tell you right away, you were talking about how things can look easy to certain players or whatever. Right. The looking aspect has nothing to do with it. That's the first clue I can give anybody about this picking stuff. Do not worry about how this player looks and how they hold their pick and how they hold their fingers or whatever, and they're really good with it. If it's not comfortable for you, don't do it.
Exactly.
Like, that's one of those things, even talking with Troy, he's really kind of illuminated me too. The number one thing is, if it feels smooth, you're on the right track. He said, quit thinking about what it looks like, quit thinking about how you're doing it, and just trust the instinct that if it feels smooth, you're doing it right. But you know what it is? It's so equivalent to how we all learn how to hold a pencil and how to write. That's our first exposure to making small, movements of extreme dexterity, holding an object, is when we learned how to write. And the thing about it is whenever you're doing that, whenever you're picking up the crayon in, the 6th grade or whatever, color your coloring books, like I was in homeschool, your body had a way of naturally finding what was the best scribble. It had a way of finding the angle with which to, apply that crayon to the paper and find the scribble. And everybody can scribble at 200 miles an hour. Like, this is beyond Paul Gilbert speed. You're scribbling. If you just thought about using a pencil or a pen right now, you've got it. So whenever people say, I can't move my hands fast enough. Yeah, you can, because you can scribble. And your body found the right way to do that to where it feels smooth. I even find myself like changing the way that I'm holding the pick right now, just doing that absent-mindedly, to find the path of least resistance.
For the scribble.
For the scribble.
Which is different than this, obviously.
But that's what you're searching for. You're searching for what feels like a scribble to you on the strings. Something that's controlled and smooth, first of all. Don't worry about how it looks like. You weren't looking at Susie's desk and how she was scribbling and trying to copy it. You found your own way. So don't worry about that. Don't worry about trying to imitate anything. Just find what feels good for you.
Good advice. Good advice.
First start.
Yeah, it's a great place to start. I'd also heard that, can't remember, man, maybe, it seems like it was maybe watching one of your videos, but this motion.
The door knock.
The door knock is the natural
Troy
motion.
has talked about that.
Is that a Troy thing?
Yeah, Troy has talked about that a lot too. And again, anybody can knock on a door at extreme speeds. If you think about this as being one pick stroke and this being another pick stroke, you're already picking beyond Slayer speed. Anybody can do it. Anybody can do that, yes. So yeah, you've already got the potential sitting there in your nervous system. So that's there for everybody.
So it's just figuring out how to apply that to this angle. Because
trying to find what feels good and feels smooth right there. And again, I can see like a little bit of musculature, like some of the motion coming from the forearm up here, which I hope is fine because I do that too. So, and I've seen a lot of other players do that kind of thing as well. So whenever you do that, whenever you're doing just a constant down and up kind of motion like that, how much like resistance are you feeling there? Are you feeling any stiffness on the downs versus ups? Does it all feel pretty equivalent?
Here's what's interesting to me that I've noticed. If I bear down a little harder with the grip, just a little bit harder with the grip, but it's enough that long term I can feel it through here. It's not instant, but long term I can feel it tensen up. But if I do that, then the upstroke feels more controlled. If I relax, the upstroke feels like loose. So that's the question. That's almost like do I need to maybe think about how I'm holding the pick?
Right. Yeah, there's a few things that could be a factor there. So like I've always noticed that for myself, I think I have a video about this on my channel. It came out a year or so ago. But whenever I get in that mindset where I'm starting to like death grip the pick and hang on to it too tight, it's a lot like if you've ever played with a drummer that grips their sticks too tight. And it makes all of the shock of the hit just go straight into the wrist and fingers, and they drop their sticks. And you've played with that drummer before, right? I know I have. So it's like if you grip too tightly, as 38 Special told us, you will lose control. So you want to hold on loosely. Wise words. But whenever you keep that grip on the pick a little bit more looselier, I find that it just keeps that shock absorption thing working better, because it's almost like the pick being able to wiggle a little bit like that. The pad of your thumb kind of acts like a natural shock absorber.
Interesting. So the pick moving ever so slightly, but it's interesting because with the string, again we're talking about micro movements
Tiny
here.
motions,
but the string does this obviously as it oscillates, and then so you've got to find that
moving target.
So is that kind of the trick, you think, is like figuring out how loose versus the motion of the string.
I think it can definitely help, you know? And there's a couple factors in there too that you can think about. I mean, that's why even adding a little bit, just a tiny bit of palm muting definitely helps with those shreddy, like Paul Gilberty runs. Like just having the string moving around less because it's slightly muted and it sounds cool.
Yeah.
So that's kind of a win-win scenario too.
Yeah. Well, and it also, I mean, I'm just watching you too, man. I see that your economy of motion is amazing.
Oh, thanks.
Like you don't move beyond the other side of the string.
Cool.
Like at all.
Awesome. It's honestly not one of those things I concentrate on a lot.
Yeah.
So if it's working, that's a good thing.
That's the point, right? Is that it's natural.
I'm gonna just continue just using information that I've stolen from other people. But one thing that can definitely help with that, you know Rick Graham, right?
Yes.
The incredible, the very British Rick Graham, who's just amazing. Good friend, man. He had a video that I saw a while back that was really helpful for me. I was at a point where I felt like my pick strokes were just getting kind of wild. And he talked about the way that he practices shortening up that economy of motion kind of thing is to do what I call the sticky picky. So like do a downstroke and then immediately mute the string on the upstroke like this.
Oh, with the upstroke.
Stick.
Oh, yeah.
Try to make the pick stick to the string.
Let me see. Let me see if I can do it.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh.
Stick into it, yeah. And then do the upstroke and stick to the string with the downstroke like this. Yeah, it's like this kind of thing. The sticky picky.
Yeah.
Trademark Rick Graham.
Man, and I also noticed that there's hop is not the right word.
A little bounce
but
maybe.
Just a little bit.
I should eliminate that honestly because you don't really want to program that motion in. It should be kind of a straight line, more like that.
Right.
But you get that nasty chirp, which the audience loves.
Right.
So if you're worried about the short pick stroke thing, that's a great way to do it. But I will say, I think that the obsession over teeny tiny pick strokes is a little bit overrated. Because here's the thing that can happen. For one, I've seen some players get really obsessed with the smallest pick motion possible. And then what happens is they train this really tiny, delicate little pick motion, and then when it's time to change strings, they're a mile away from that next string.
Yeah.
Because if your pick is only moving like this, and now I got to go to the G string, I'm a mile away now.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, it's twice the motion.
Twice the motion.
Twice the amount of motion that you're used to.
Yeah. If I was going the other way, I'm now a mile away from the D string.
Yeah.
Whenever I'm doing a lick that moves from one string to another, the last note on the string is not only sounding a note out, it's also an elevator that moves me towards the string I'm going to. And if you're used to doing those teeny tiny pick motions, the elevator's getting stuck between floors, okay?
Yep.
So here's the thing about this too, that's again deceptive about the teeny tiny pick motion thing. If you're programming good movements, they should work no matter how big or small they are. So the perfect example of this is Zakk Wylde. His pick motions are gigantic. You can see him from space, right?
Oh, yeah.
But it's because for the kind of licks that he's playing, they're quality motions. So here's what I'm talking about. So Zakk is an extreme downward pick slanting player.
Right, almost to where it's out.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The downstroke is going very into the strings. The upstroke is popping out of the strings like this right here.
Right.
So what that means is anytime he's doing one of those fast pentatonic licks that he does, it'll be like near, 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 and then he can go to the next string really easily because his pick is like out of the strings like this.
It's not getting caught. It's not in between here like this deal.
Exactly right. It's not trapped between the strings.
Right.
It's always escaping on the upstroke like this right here. And Zakk's motions are huge. They're not small at all.
Looks like he's chopping wood over there, man.
Yeah, exactly. You can see him from the back row.
Exactly, man.
And the thing about it is if he shrunk those motions down, they would probably look about like Yngwie or Eric Johnson or Joe Bonamassa's, but they're just magnified so much. But they're still quality motions because with his upstroke popping out of the strings like that, like look at this right here. I'm making that upstroke huge. It's massive. But it still works, as you can see down the camera right here, because the upstroke is never going to hit any of these other strings. A good motion is still good even if it's huge.
Yeah.
So actually, whenever you're trying to relearn some of these mechanics, I recommend exaggerating. Exaggerate what you're looking for. So anytime people are working on, like let's say some of the downward pick slanting kind of stuff, this sort of upstroke escape style that we see from Yngwie, Zakk, Bonamassa, players like that, Marty Friedman as well, and George Benson. Whenever you're working on that stuff, I recommend people, for one, start holding the pick further back.
Interesting. So you can see more of what the pick's doing, maybe? And
There is that, and here's another effect that I want you to think about in terms of what happens when you hold that grip further back. You've probably seen in like art classes and stuff, right? People doing charcoal sketches.
Yeah.
They don't hold it right here at the tip of the charcoal.
Yeah.
When you'd make a motion and you're holding, I call it the point of action, the tip of the pick. That's where the action is happening. Whenever you're holding it right there at the very end of it, the motion is very true. For whatever kind of motion happens here, pretty much the same motion is happening at the point of action. But just like those charcoal sketchers, they hold the pencil way far back, right? Because it exaggerates motion. It exaggerates motion. Now for any teeny tiny motion I'm making back here, the point of action is wiggling, it's amplifying it, So when you hold that pencil at the back of it, you make a circle, it makes a huge circle on the paper. Exaggerate the motion so you can really see and feel the benefit of them. So for example, if I was playing one of those, you know, kind of Zakky sort of licks, if I was holding the pick really close to the tip like that and playing small, especially from that angle, it probably looks like nothing's happening. Pick's going up and down, no big deal. But if I hold the pick towards the butt end like that, and I really let those motions be bigger, I can really see if these are quality motions I'm programming. You can see on the camera right here, if I hold it that way, that upstroke is never at risk of hitting any of these other strings. You see the downstroke is kind of smacking into the next string as sort of a stopping block. That's exactly what Zakk's doing. So whenever you exaggerate like that, you can really learn if you're making the motions you think you're making. Because whenever you're doing it like this and it's teeny tiny and you're thinking, oh, I'm doing the upwards escape thing. Are you sure?
Are you sure?
It's tiny. You probably can't
really
even see it.
Yeah.
But when you do this, exaggerate. Learn to feel the quality of the motions.
Interesting, man. That's see, this is the advice. This is the kind of advice I need. It's like zoom way out. You know, because I've been zooming in forever. Right. You know what I mean? So it's like maybe I need to just zoom way out
sometimes
and take a big look at everything.
And that's also too where just changing stuff up and making stuff deliberately weird for yourself by trying something that's just different on purpose can be really beneficial. Because like for myself, my normal pick grip is kind of vanilla, just thumb and first finger. You know, I like to get a little support from the middle finger behind here. That way that knuckle doesn't get bent.
I'm kind of same thing.
A little support back there, you know. So pretty vanilla pick grip. But there's times that, you know, because that is my everyday driver, you can kind of, I call it fall asleep at the wheel. It's almost so comfortable I don't even think about what I'm doing anymore. So I can be making bad actions and thinking I'm changing them, and in reality I'm not doing anything because this is my everyday driver. So at times like that, I'll switch the grip up entirely so I can become more conscious of what I'm doing.
So you'll do a
like trailing edge kind of grip, like that kind of grip where you can see I'm playing off of the inside edge of the pick rather than the outside. This is kind of Benson style. So sometimes just by deliberately making a change like that, it makes me more conscious of what I'm doing. And that can actually lead to big strides whenever I go back to my normal picking style. So sometimes changing stuff up on purpose is a great learning tool.
Wow. Really interesting, man. Dude,
cool stuff.
Great stuff, man. Thank you, Ben.
I hope that helps.
Seriously,
hopefully
man,
that's a few things to think about, man.
Tremendously.
Yeah.
Really appreciate you, man. Really appreciate you.
Dude, happy to be here.
All right, thanks.
Thanks, Don.